8:09. That's the time in our studios. This is Q95 FM radio, and this is the program In the Spotlight. I hope that a few of my, I wouldn't want to call them angry fans, but some of the fans who are not very happy that we've missed a few programs, I'm sure that you're quite happy tonight that we're back on. And you know, we've had that conversation before. I have said to you that because of my schedule, because of my lifestyle, because of the things that I have to do, sometimes it will be a challenge to be here every Monday night, but I try all the same. So of course our last program was with Dr. Hazel Shillingford-Ricketts, and after that very night, in fact, there was some political, some protests, some activities going on, and even that night we felt that we had lost some of our viewers and some of our listeners because persons were otherwise distracted, if you want to put it that way, because they were watching what was happening at the roundabout. You know, they were wanting to know what was going on. So even on that night, we proceeded with our program, even having a bit of a challenge getting here. We proceeded with our program, and we did have a wonderful program, except that, you know, we only had the time to deal with a certain aspect of certain elements of Dr. Ricketts' story, and we barely scratched the surface as it pertained to her professional life. So we decided that we would bring Dr. Ricketts back on once we resumed the program. So the following week, I think I had exams, so that week I definitely was not going to be there, was not going to be here, and there was quite a bit of, you know, again, distractions, political parties having their meetings, persons going to their meetings, or they're viewing those meetings live and all of that. So again, and it was election week, so we decided again not to have a program on that night. We were looking at the following week, which would have been last week Monday, but Doc was not quite ready, and I just decided if Doc is not ready, I'm not going to have another program, because what I wanted to do was to continue from where we left off with her about 3 weeks ago. So here we are tonight. We are going to do, it is my only, she's the second only guest I've actually done a part 2 with. So Doc is here, but let me just use the opportunity again to say good evening to everyone, near and far, wherever it is that you tuned in and locked into the program tonight. We're very, very happy to have you join us tonight. I want to remind you as well, we want to close off the GoFundMe. So for those of you who have not yet contributed and you felt that you wanted to, you're not forced at all. We're just asking that you do the GoFundMe. I just posted it on my personal page a while ago, but I seem to have posted the wrong link. But Sabina has posted it in the comments of the link, so you can go there and make your contribution to the GoFundMe for the program as we, you know, continue efforts at improving and making things better with the In the Spotlight radio show. So again, a pleasure to be here. It is 13 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. Welcome again, everyone, as we continue with Dr. Hazel Shillingford-Ricketts, who is also my doctor, and I love her dearly. The other day somebody said to me, "Oh, Fidana, you sometimes get a little personal." No, if I love Dr. Shillingford, I'm going to say I love her. You know, I love her. And she's a beautiful lady and a good person with a good heart. And so we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Ricketts this evening. Let me just make sure that I have the right. My Kadisha is here, so thank you, Kadisha, for being here. Thank you again, Q, for allowing me the opportunity at my own free will to be here on a Monday night. No interference, nothing of the sort. I come, I bring my guests. You know, the only challenge I ever get is if I go over time. You know, sometimes I might get a little, I know we need to end the program on time, but that's it. You know, nothing else, nothing else happens. But you know, in the spotlight, you know, the guests always have so much to share that sometimes we still at 10 or 15 minutes over. Just like Doc had a lot to share the last time she was here. To think that we have so much more to learn from Dr. Hazel Shillingford's story. Doc, good evening.
Good evening, Fedina, and good evening, Kadisha, and listening public. I'm really happy to be back. I got a number of compliments on the last program, persons reported crying, others reported laughing a lot, but they all reported enjoying the program.
Yes.
And tonight we will continue in a little bit more serious tone.
Of course.
I pass through my life.
Well, Doc, for me, was the stories on your mom. Those were the ones that killed me last time. But tonight is going to be a different perspective that we're taking. Yes. So thank you again for being here. It is my absolute pleasure to have you. As we said on the last program, we spoke a lot about you, about your life growing up. We spoke about your family. We spoke about those major challenges that you had with losing your husband and your son, getting into this major accident that caused him to lose his limbs. And we spoke about all of that, and I presume that's why you had some people crying, and you had at times you had them laughing, because that aspect of your life was filled with all of this. But the areas that we're going to talk about tonight is all about people, and what you've done for country, and what you've done for the people of Dominica, especially where eye care is concerned. And I suspect many of us know you as the main eye doctor in Dominica. When you talk about going to the eye doctor, you talk about going to Dr. Hazel, Shillingford-Ricketts. So Doc, before we get into the element of Dominica and the people of Dominica and the work you've done in Dominica, just give us a quick summary of the journey to the doctor in a few minutes. Just share with us, for those who may have missed it the last time.
Okay, so on completion of my studies at the Sixth Form College, I worked for you, and then I went to the University of the West Indies, where I did my medical degree, or MBBS, Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery. And you must be a medical doctor before you proceed to specialize to become an eye surgeon. And so I came to go back to Dominica to work for about 6 years. During that time I had my children, and then I went to Canada and I attended the University of Ottawa Eye Institute in Ottawa, Canada, and there I spent 4 years pursuing my specialization in ophthalmology. On completion, I returned to Dominica to work, and I have been here since. By and large, the only ophthalmologist providing that service to the general public and privately for most parts.
When you talk about that service, what exactly is ophthalmology?
So ophthalmology is the service providing eye care to a patient, and the eye care has several components. The first one is refractive, the need for glasses or contact lens to make patients see better, or we have refractive surgery. You might hear about LASIK or so, where they use laser to reshape the front of the eye, the cornea, so that patients can focus to see better without using any glasses or contact lens. So this is the refractive component of the ophthalmologist's work. Then you have the medical component, where you deal with issues like infections, diabetes, cancers, autoimmune diseases. A lot of the diseases in the body affects the eye, and a number of times the diagnosis is made with an eye examination. So I never forget, there was a patient, I saw just one drop of blood on her retina, and when I did investigation, she turned out to have leukemia. Yes, so we do have to investigate patients and try to link it. Is it because of a disease elsewhere in the body? And then you have the surgical part. So ophthalmologists, by and large, regard themselves as eye surgeons, although there are a few of them who restrict their practices from medical practice. But by and large, you're an eye surgeon, and you do surgery for a number of eye diseases like cataracts, pterygium, strabismus, and removing the eye, corneal grafts, and, from the eyelids go right back. So as a surgeon, you do a number of these type of work. Who are the patients? Well, the patients from birth to the oldest person. So premature babies less than 2 pounds, you have to examine them because they are at risk of developing a blinding eye disease known as retinopathy of prematurity, because their eyes have not completed its development when they're born, and it can then develop abnormal vessels growing in on the retina and cause hemorrhages and retinal detachment. So we've got to screen for them. So once the nursery knows they have a premature baby, they have to alert me, and I go to see them when they're 4 weeks old and continue. Knock wood, I have not lost any child to blindness from that condition, but we do have one child with it, but he was born before I returned to Dominica. So before I used to refer them to Barbados, but now I do the laser treatment. So
you can handle it yourself.
Yeah, we have behind the laser that I do. So
but, go ahead.
So you go right across, I said, the spectrum, like Mapampo. I remember examining Mapampo. I had to move all our equipment to her neighbor's house in Portsmouth because she had no electricity where she lived, and she always said when they interviewed her she would like to see again. So I had a resident from Canada who was doing his elective with me, and he said, let's go see her. So we moved all our equipment down to the house, to the neighbor's house, and we examined her. Unfortunately, she had cataracts, but she was blind from glaucoma. There was nothing we could do for her. So this is the span. The oldest person I've operated on was a 104-year-old to remove his cataracts, and he could go to the sea to bathe after that.
Oh, so, nice. Yeah, so. But Doc, why that line of medicine?
You mean
why did you select that? Yes.
Well, actually, I said that it selected me.
Okay.
Because remember when I came back from having my third child, instead of reassigning me to surgery, they reassigned me they put me in ophthalmology to work with Dr. Michaud. And Dr. Michaud was a Canadian ophthalmologist who came here to start up our ophthalmology department, and also to select a Dominican to go to specialize in that field. And I worked with her about maybe 4 months or so before she fell ill, and I had to continue until we could get a replacement. And by then I was in love because I love surgery, but it was not demanding as general surgery, and you had your hands both in medicine and surgery. So you had, when a patient sits on my chair, I never know what I'm going to find. Right. If I'm going to tell that person, all you need is glasses, or I say your nerve is swollen, you may have a brain tumor, we need to do a scan also. So it's very challenging when a person sits in your chair, you never know what you're going to find when you examine them.
Okay, so you fell in love with this and you decided that was going to be your chosen scope of medicine that you were going to practice. All right, and so you came back to Dominica, you started in this. What happened next in terms of your line of work? Okay,
so now I'm faced with having to provide eye care to a population of about 72,000 persons, and I'm the only ophthalmologist on island. So what they say, when you have an elephant, the best way to eat it is one bite at a time.
Correct.
And also many hands make light work, so I had to start designating chores around. So the good thing for me in Dominica is that I had worked in the system before, so I knew what I was coming back to. Okay. So during my training, I would tell my professors, well, look, in Dominica I will not have that kind of machine, so how can I provide a service without that machine? And so they would teach me the older methods of doing things that I can use in Dominica with my limited resources. Secondly, Dominica I was fortunate to work in a country where we had primary health care. Because no.
And primary health care means what?
Well, this is the first line of health care that is distributed throughout the island. As you know, in Dominica, our primary health services is divided into 7 health districts. But each health district is manned by a team headed by the district medical officer, providing services for people in their district.
Okay.
So if you have to look at the World Report on Vision after having 30 years of experience with the Vision 2020 program and so, you can see that they have concluded the only way we can deal with the escalating rate of blindness is through primary health care. Okay. And so in Dominica we had that already.
All right, so we are already on the move.
Yes. So when I was in England and they presented the World Report on Vision, I was like, are they talking about my program in Dominica? Because a lot of the recommendations they were making were things that I had implemented or I'm hoping to implement. So we had this primary health care service, and so it was easy for me now because Dr. Michaud had already started before I left going to the districts to provide eye services. So I took up and continued. And that meant that every Thursday on a schedule, I'd go to a different district and I would see the patients there. So this was especially good. First of all, it was accessible, especially for the older persons, disabled, the children and so. People couldn't afford to hop the bus to come into room. So it was affordable because they didn't have to pay to see the specialist. And we had the family nurse practitioner was like the designated first line health worker for eye care. So they would coordinate in terms of making the appointments for so a person come to the health center and they said, nurse, I cannot see, and then she needed an appointment. So when I came, there was already a list of persons there for me to see and so. And when they needed surgery, then I referred them to the hospital to do what they had to do. So we had that. We had the family nurse practitioners in each health district. And not only they made appointments for the eye clinic and screened the patients, but they also did a school health program where for all children age 5 and age 11 after common entrance, they screen them their school health. So they look at their whole body, their teeth, their eyes, their hearing and so. And if they failed this vision screening, they would make appointments for me to see those children in the district. So children with strabismus, children with glasses, some children with glaucoma, and so they will refer them. So the family nurse practitioners are very key in providing primary eye care to the public. Now in Roseau, the Roseau people would come to the hospital. But on my list of going to the districts, I also had the infirmary. So I'll go to the Dominica infirmary to see the residents there too, and do their surgeries and whatever else they needed to be done. So this structure was already in place. So it was very easy for me to do. Now,
but it seems you said very easy. You mean in terms of the
of reaching to the people?
Yes, because that seems like a lot.
Yes, but reaching to it instead of waiting for everybody to come to comply. Because what we don't realize is that blindness is a massive public health problem because our population is increasing and our patients are living longer. And most of our blinding eye problems are in our older patients. So you find you have much more people with eye problems to deal with. And so we have to become very aggressive and very creative as to how we implement eye care too. Because when somebody is blind, they cannot work, they cannot go to school, advance themselves and that sort of thing. And it is a problem for their families as well as for them. So, and these are people that, can look after themselves. I remember I had a patient in Granby that I did surgery for cataracts, and she couldn't see before, so she was housebound. And I removed her cataracts, and when she came back, the relative told me, "Doc, you give us a new problem now." I said, "What is the problem?" Well, she's always out of the house. You always have to be going in the village looking for her. Or I've had some other patients, like patients with Down syndrome that were blind, and they would say, "Doctor, now she discovered the fridge, so she's just eating down the house for us." So, you know, you have those types of, you know, issues that come up after you get patients seen again. But coming back to how I implemented it, so I had that structure there. But when I trained in Ottawa, they also trained ophthalmic technicians, which are persons who are not doctors, but they are trained to do some of the examinations, the routine examinations that a doctor does, like refracting for glasses, doing the eye pressures, dilating the pupil, doing visual fields. A lot of the different investigations they did, which are routine stuff. So I figured, you know what, if I had somebody like that here, it would really help me. So I spoke to the CEO of the Brenda Strafford Foundation, and we got our highness at the time, Miss Morancy, to go to Ottawa for 2 years to train as an ophthalmic technician. And when she came back, the number of patients I started seeing doubled.
Of course.
Because I spent less time on the patients, because when they come in, she would see them, do their history, do their glasses test, dilate them, and do their eye pressure. So by the time they come to me, all these things are already on their file. I just have to look in their eyes, make their diagnosis, and give them their treatment. So it really helped a lot. So that was one of the ways I helped to increase my ability to
help more people,
see more tests, to help more people, and so then I had a dilemma, because by then the waiting time, appointment time at the hospitals are you. So if up to now, if you go to now to get an appointment, you'll get one for you.
Are you serious?
Yes.
But Doc, would that depend on the circumstances?
Well, if it's an
you have a more critical,
if it's emergency, they will come in immediately. But it isn't. But the problem was that if a diabetic went in and they have an eye problem already from the diabetes, they have to wait for you. By the time I see them, they could have gone blind. So I had to figure out a way to deal with that. So I remember during my training, we used to use a camera that used to hold like a little video thing, and take pictures at the back of the eye, especially of children during surgery and stuff. So I figured if I got a little camera like that, you know, I could get somebody to take pictures at the back of the eye, and then I would view the pictures and be able to determine who are those who need my services immediately.
Correct.
But the cameras then were those that we had to develop with film. We used to make Dupex run out of film. The first year we implemented that program was in 2005. And fortunately we had a gentleman by the name of Mr. Clem Johnson, who did photography in England at college. So we just had to train him how to do it in the eye, but he had all the techniques already. And so he would go out into the districts and he had to do 7 photos per eye. So in the year he did over 1,300 patients, and I had about 13,000 photos to go through. So in the night when he brought the developed film for me, I had to sit down through all of them, and you know, we had to write their names at the back so we don't mistake people's photos. And then decide, well, okay, this one has retinopathy, whatever it is, you know, we have to see them. And so, and we detected about 300 or plus had retinopathy, and out of that 70 of them needed laser. So we had to see all these patients to pick up the 70 patients who had vision-threatening diabetic retinopathy. So I went to...
So by then, by the way, you were now developing a department.
Yes.
You already added 2 persons to your quote-unquote eye department. Yes.
And then there was nobody else in the world doing that. Mobile fundus photography. So persons like Powell, they were fascinated by that. But the drawback was developing the film. So by that time, the same manufacturers of that camera had moved to develop a digital one. So Power of Water is a digital one, and you just have to download it onto the laptop. But this gentleman I spoke to, he was a member of staff of the government service. He was, somebody we contracted from outside, and government started getting fidgety about the salaries and whatever it is. And so I said, fine. So we sent Nanda to Canada to train to do the digital photography. But she was so efficient and did so well that my professors there, that was in 2005, were so impressed with her. And they said, well, we don't want to only train her to do photos for you. Can we train her to be a technician? Because soon after that, the I trained as a technician migrated. And so they trained her as a full-fledged technician. Okay. So when she came back, she could not only just do the photography, she could do other stuff like refractions and eye pressures and visual fields and so.
Which she has all done on me. Most of that. So she came back, so we started doing the digital fundus photography. So that's the program. We started in 2005, in 2006 we went digital, and then we continued until 2015. By then, the Queen Elizabeth program came on board. For her 60th anniversary of the crown on the throne, she got a number of monetary donations, and she set it up in a trust, and that trust funded sight reducing activities and also developing a cadre of young leaders in the Commonwealth. So the proposal was being written by the Caribbean Council for the Blind, and so they, because we were the only one with this experience, hands-on experience, they turned to us to help them to develop the proposal, and it was accepted. And so through that, they got funding to introduce the program for screening for diabetics using fundus photos in Jamaica, Belize, and St. Lucia. But because we had ours already, they funded us to expand. Okay. So instead of having one screener, which was Nanda, we then trained Miss Carlin Winston. She went to St. Lucia to be trained how to use a different type of camera, a table model one, and so we now had 2 screener readers. So instead of Nanda going through all the legal health centers in Dominica to do the fundus photos, because that was her primary responsibility, we divided the island into 2 zones. So about half of our population lives in the Roseway Health District. So we redirected the patients from the Roseway Health District to the hospital, and we allowed Nanda to continue the other health district. But our Roseau people not happy, because before Nanda used to go on to Point Michel and Soufriere and Belle-Bishop and Trafalgar, and now you're telling them they have to come into Roseau to do that, so they're not happy. So all of those areas were part of Roseau?
Yes.
Okay.
All of these areas go on from Mao, from all that.
So you were saying to these people that they know how to come to the hospital?
To the hospital, yes. And so it has affected our numbers too. So we are now working on a proposal to train another screener and get another camera so that we can continue doing the peripheral parts of Roseau and some on the eastern side. So
and you just said we are now, Doc. So I know there was a situation with you retiring and then contracts and so on. Does that mean that Doc is back in business?
Well, for one, I never gave up the diabetic program.
Okay.
So even if I didn't have a contract, I continued doing screening, and I continued treating them for this. Even if it's pro bono, because it was just so important. There's nobody else to do it, and I didn't want these people, because the diabetics, most of them are in our working population, and so we couldn't afford our economic force to lose persons from blindness. But yes, I signed my contract last week and I'm back.
Awesome news. Good news. That's very, very good news. 1 year contract to your contract?
Well, 1 year they started
initially, and that's fine. You can work with that.
Yes,
and we'll see what happens after, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, congratulations on that, Doc. You know that we need you to continue serving our people.
Yes, I have a lot of work to do. So.
Yes, you still look young and able. Yes.
So we had the diabetic program, and so this is why I went to England.
Okay.
To be attend a reception hosted by the Queen.
Tell us more about the actual reception and how you came to go. I know you gave us some background about it a while ago, but how did this activity come about and you getting to go?
Well, we implemented the program from 2016 under the funding of the trust, but it was only for 5 years, so it's coming to an end.
So hence the reason.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Queen then decided that all the persons who were involved in the project, especially the team leaders and so, to have them, to host them in England to express her appreciation through Countess Sophie, because she's the vice patron after the Queen.
Okay.
So, but I had met Sophie before, earlier in the year. I met her at another meeting in England, and the year before that I met Prince Andrew at the Congress of Ophthalmology held in Liverpool, because he's the patron of the Royal Congress of Ophthalmology.
Okay.
In England.
What was that experience like, Dr. Ricketts?
With the Queen?
Yes, getting to go to Buckingham Palace and to meet with the Queen. You were beautifully adorned in your creole, in your wabduyet and all of that, and you look stunning. But tell us about that experience.
Well, it was really exciting. I didn't really think so much about how I would feel. I just I was looking forward to it. But the excitement really climaxed when we were waiting for the taxis, the limousines to take us to the Buckingham Palace. We were asked to open our envelopes, our invitation, because we had to have each of us got our invitation from the Queen, and to check whether we had a blue card in there, because the blue card is what you really had to present for entry to the Buckingham Palace.
Okay.
So when I look, I didn't see a blue card. I said, Papa, God, I can't run tonight, man. So I said, everybody had a small blue card. When I looked, I saw I had a small white card with a red band across it. I said, well, now I quit tonight. Look at what they give me a white card with a red band. So I was kind of perturbed. So
Not a blue card, but a white one with a red band.
Okay, red is Deba. So I went to the lady who was checking us, and I sort of very discreetly, because she was going to tell me something bad, I didn't want the others to hear. So I went to her very discreetly, and I didn't get a blue card. I got it. She said, oh, okay, don't worry, we'll deal with that when we get to the palace.
Okay.
I said, okay, fine. So when I got to the palace, I still looking around and figured, what is going on?
Where's your blue card?
So when I arrived at the palace, and so we had to go to the cloakroom to put our, coats and whatever it is we brought. And but before that, there was a gentleman at the entrance asking us to present our card. So I said, Lord, so I said, okay. Here it comes, Hazel, all right. So when I presented, very cautiously presented my card, I said, oh, okay, stand on the side here. So you put me on the side by myself. And all the blue cards went another way. Okay. So,
but he clapped, so that might have been a good sign.
Yes, so that was a good sign. I realized something was happening. And then I realized I was one of the 4 participants who were chosen to have a private reception with the Queen.
No way.
So we had to go into this special room away from the cocktail where the reception was held. Wow. And waited. You see, there is a video online about it. And then the Queen came in, Her Majesty, the Queen came in with Countess Sophie, and you had 4 members of the trust there, headed by the ex-Prime Minister John Major. Okay, and then you had other 2 gentlemen, and then you had the CEO, Dr. Astrid Bonville. She's visiting Dominica several times to view the program and so. And then after them, these 4 white people from the trust, it was me. And then you had a gentleman representing Africa, and then a lady representing Asia, and then 1 representing the Pacific Islands. So she came and the Queen shook hands, and then she commented on my work.
Of course.
And so and I was like, oh my God. And then that same evening, I got a WhatsApp from Judith Pessin, and she said, because she worked in the Commonwealth before, and she said, did she comment on your work? So I said, but why would Judith know? But apparently she's quite fascinated by our work. So when she sees it, she always comments on it. And so, and she's a pleasant lady.
Pleasant little lady.
Very sharp. And so look at you in the eye and smile. You could sense the genuine interaction with her. And then after that, they escorted us out, and then she had to go to meet the.
So the little room was just for conversation and for meeting you.
Yes.
Light conversation.
Well, she didn't have light conversation. Well, we had light conversation before.
Okay.
But when she came, she met us.
The key people.
Yes.
The ones with the white card and the red banner.
I felt very, very
special
and honored. I really did. So, but I think Dominica helped the program a lot because we had previous experience in that. So when we had meetings beforehand, I always led the discussions because, we had so much experience in providing screening for diabetic retinopathy. And
so that was a wonderful experience.
Very.
And you came back home.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I stayed a couple of days with my son Anthony.
Yes. How is he, by the way?
He's doing
if you don't mind me asking.
No, he's doing well.
He's doing well.
Yes, he's rehab. So.
Yes. Okay, good stuff. Carry on, Doc.
Yes. So, other programs we did was the School Vision program. So, in 2012, the Prime Minister, in his budget address, mentioned that he had assigned some money to provide glasses for school children. I heard that like everybody else on the air, and I was like, I'm the eye specialist here, and I have nobody has spoken to that to me about that. How could it have reached budget already? But when I called Ministry of Health, they didn't say I had no clue what was going on. So we embraced the program because yes, a number of children with glasses, and a lot of them didn't buy it because they couldn't afford. I was actually sending them to social welfare. So, but in my training, they were always like, massive screening of all school children is not the most cost-effective way to go about it. But before that, we had the school program because remember I told you the FNPs did screening at age 5 and 6, which was the age where you really capture them. So I figured, you know what? I had my experience with querying politicians program, with the Cuban Eye program, which we will talk about after.
Okay.
So I decided this one, I'm going to make it work for me.
No, we're good. Yes, let's go.
Yes, so I said, well, my husband in 2008, my late husband, he had done a step survey where he determined the prevalence of diabetes in the 50 to 64 age group and also obesity and so. The children under 5, they are monitored in the maternal and child clinic to check their obesity. But within 5 and 16, we really don't know what is happening with obesity. So I said, well, now that we have the opportunity to screen every child, and that was about 12,000 children, I am going to include, beside testing for glasses, doing their body mass index, which is a measurement used to determine whether a child is healthy somewhat. And so we implemented that, and this has never been done before, to screen all your children.
Wow.
So we have all the data for over 11,000 children, and we're just waiting on analysis to tell us more about it and to inform us as to how to go about implementing programs to minimize obesity. So this was one program that came out of the
School vision
program, and so the other major programs that we had was a number of vision mission programs. So we have, from 1996, we have the VOSH team that comes in every year to do screening for glasses, but they also detect other eye problems, cataracts, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, and they refer them to the hospital.
Is that something that you welcomed back then?
Yes, because it was another set of eyes, you know, screening people to feed in those who need my services in. So, I mean, like everything else, there were one or two little things that I had to tweak and whatever it is. But by and large, it is a useful program. And so.
Do they still come?
Yes.
They still come?
Yes. So, so we had them. And then we had the first major eye mission from overseas was the Cuban Eye Program. In 2005 it started. Now, I was driving to work that morning and the PS, Dr. Banis, called me and said, "Doc, I need to speak to you. Where are you?" I said, "Well, I'm on my way into town. I can always take a detour to come to you before I reach the hospital." So I went to him and he told me, "Well, we have some Cuban surgeons here and they came to select people for eye surgery."
They were already on island?
Yes, they were already on island. So you can imagine my reaction. I was like, "What? You have Cuban surgeons on island and I'm the ophthalmologist in the hospital and I'm only now hearing from that?" Himself was the first time he was hearing from it too. I think only the people from Foreign Affairs that knew these people were coming. So I took a deep breath, and because I really felt a little bit disrespected, I didn't think that this is how we deal with professionals deal with professionals. So I said, "Well, we have the documentations. Who are they? You know, what are their skills? Well, what is the proposal? What are they going to be doing? Who is going to be responsible for the what? Who is going?" I was told, "We do not have any documentation." I said, "Well, no. The principle is if you're going to implement a program, you have to have your proposal, your protocols for how you're going to implement it. Because dealing with people's health, you have to have a way of being accountable. And so the only way you're going to be accountable is to put it on paper so we have something to reference back to." Well, we don't have it, and it's water under the bridge, get on with it. I said, "Really? Okay. Well, I'll deal with it because I'll be out of it." So I distanced myself from the program. Well, that's when all hell breaks loose.
Oh yes, because there might have even been some kind of impression given that you were not happy that the people were there.
Oh yes, I got.
But now I'm understanding why you would have probably had some issues.
And you know, it's funny, in life you just have to live long enough to see. Because I wasn't opposed to the patients going for their eye surgery. What I wanted was to follow the principles by which I was trained.
Right.
I need documentation. So if anything go wrong, I know where it went wrong and what we have to do to it. Okay? I approach a number of persons now who are on the radio talking about accountability. And I said, "Can you give me some airtime to explain my positions?" Because people felt it's because I wasn't going to make enough money, because it's people taking away
your patients.
My patients. I mean, you had patients waiting for me to do surgery, and the nurses in the hospital would pass. "Oh, you stupid, you only getting a free trip to go Cuba to do all the surgery, and only going to make Dr. Shillingford do the surgery for you." Yes, my nursing colleagues in the hospital, yes. People come in my office. She crying. She crying. She cannot pay mortgage for the big house she have in Mount Daniel.
Oh my goodness.
I never made it public what I went through, but I was a subject of very unkind behaviors by my fellow Dominicans. But the worst part about it is the patients who were caught in between. Because patients were scared to come back to me. So they came back from having their surgeries, they had complications, they had nobody to go to, they would stay home and suffer. And then the nurse would say, Doc, I have this person with this red eye, what try to send them in? Or I would see patients I did surgery in one eye and they had, and when they come to me for the eye that I did surgery, and they would say, oh doctor, this one is your eye, the left one is the Cuban eye. So as if I can only exactly. I'm going to laugh. No. Or you'd find that patients felt they had gone overseas, they had gone to Cuba, they had surgery, so all their eye problems were solved. But some of them had comorbidities, meaning that they had multiple eye diseases. So a person would have had cataract surgery, but they would still have glaucoma or diabetic retinopathy, which needed to have continued care. And they would stop coming to the routine clinics, and by the time they came back, they lost their sight from the glaucoma, or they lost their sight from the diabetic retinopathy. And so, and it also impacted on our diabetic retinopathy screening program, because few patients were coming into a screening because they felt the Cubans were solving their problems. So it disrupted the whole flow of what we were doing at the hospital. And you found that I would say it was a very low point in my career in Dominica, honestly. And it was not helped by this news. I remember sitting down at home and listening to the radio, and there was this medical student, she's a doctor now, good doctor, on the radio, and she came down and she was on the radio, I suppose, educating the public about the program. And so when she said, well, this is what the Cubans are going to do, cataracts, strabismus, pterygium surgery, and whatever it is the listening said they were doing. And somebody asked her, well, what Dr. Shillingford going to do now? Oh, she will do the glaucoma and she will do this. And I said, but look at like a medical student on the radio determining what eye work that I should be doing, because the Cubans taking charge of the others.
That sounds like a very dismissive manner.
So, anyway, I continued to plod along, but I was not going to compromise the standards that I had set. So, up to recently, I had a group of patients, and this is what I was trying to protect against. These patients have a genetic degenerative condition in their eyes called retinitis pigmentosa, and it progressively gets worse until they get blind. There is no established treatment for it. And I remember when I was in Canada studying, we used to have journal clubs where we'd go over journals of, whatever news coming out in the profession. And we reviewed a paper from Cuba talking about ozone treatment for retinitis pigmentosa. And we really could not make sense of it to understand how they were going to get this thing to work and so. I just concluded that it was a worthwhile treatment. And so I never saw any further papers on it to know whether it worked or not. And I have about 4 or 5 patients. I have more patients with this condition, but I have about 4 or 5 of them who were actually taken to Cuba and subjected to this treatment and told that in 3 months they would see again. And these people are just progressively going blind, and they're very frustrated and bitter, because when they describe what they went through, the treatment, how it was administered, it was very traumatic to them. And there was no documentation that this was one of the diseases that was going to be treated. None. It was never mentioned. So they're doing their research and they just slide these patients in under the table. And this is some of the issues that I was trying to protect our patients from. Okay? Yes, the program did a lot of good in restoring sight for patients with cataracts. I'm not going to go on.
Right.
But there were other little fluffy stuff around that we needed to really get proper handle on. However, all was not lost because the Medical Association had supported my position and we arranged a meeting with the Prime Minister to explain it's not because I was against the program, but how doctors do things. Right. It's not just, it's not the same as a politician saying do surgery and it is done without accountability. So that went by and gradually the program was phased out.
What happened to the patients though, Doc, especially those?
Well, they all came back. They all came back.
Were you able to help some who were?
Yes, well, some of them are just, you know, but those that had other eye problems like diabetic retinopathy of glaucoma. A number of them had complications which I couldn't do anything about, and so, which was no less than, you know, in other places where the same treatments are administered and so. But we learned from it.
Okay.
We learned as a team in Ministry of Health from it. So that when the American comfort ship and the Chinese mission and the Venezuelan mission came in, from day one, we had a list of what was required, what we would accept and what we would not accept.
Well, at least
this led to more successful and mutually respectful programs. So yes, that was a rough patch, but I suppose I stirred enough kata in the pot to make them understand that this will not be tolerated, and so the subsequent missions were done in a much more professional way and to the safety of patients.
Those who were, you could probably say, belittling you, throwing fear for you and so on, did anybody come to realize that probably what they were doing was wrong and probably later come and say, Dr. Ricketts, I apologize.
No,
I did not mean to.
Apologize, no. And the same patients came back to me. So the same people, you know, came for eye care to me when they needed it. And so. But, you know, my oath as a doctor is to treat everybody irrespective of their color, their creed, their sex, their religion, whatever it is. So I did not make that faze me. When they came for care, I provided the care. Yes, but it was a little rough patch.
Okay, that one in particular.
Yeah. Now, in addition to the regular eye problems, like, no, in 2000, the Caribbean region launched the Vision 2020 program for the region, and it was the right to sight.
Okay, let's take a pause there, Doc, and when we come back, we'll talk about Vision 2020 and everything else. I've had you talking for a full hour, so I need to give you a break for a moment. It is 9:02, the time in our studios. We're doing a part 2 of Dr. Hazel Shillingford-Ricketts, and I'm actually liking this part because we're getting to hear a lot more about Dr. Ricketts and her career, her professional life, her life as a doctor, serving our people and our country. So we're coming right back after this. A reminder to you, by the way, we're trying to close off the GoFundMe for the program. So those of you who are able to, if you go on my page, I posted the link again this evening, but as I mentioned earlier, just in case you're just tuning in and you want to donate, I made an error. It seems with the link that I posted, I missed out an element, and so there is a post from Sabina within the comments that you can actually get the actual link and go there. No matter how small it is, it could be 10, it could be 20, it could be 50, it could be 1,000 if you wish. Whatever amount you choose to give would be greatly appreciate it. So please go and make a donation. And I know, I don't know if Doc wants me to mention, but she gave a contribution, and I'm so thankful for the contribution as well. Doc, so if you're a former guest of the program and you want to make a contribution to the program, we appreciate that as well. Keep it locked. We're coming right back. This is the In the Spotlight radio show right here on Q95 FM radio.
In the Spotlight on Q95 FM radio every Monday night from 8 p.m. In the Spotlight, featuring people from all walks of Dominican life, spotlighting their triumphs and tragedies, dreams, hopes, aspirations, untold stories, touching the human and personal side of our people in politics, religion, sports, business, music, culture, the media, and more. Getting to know our farmers, our public servants, youth, and the ordinary Dominican. Listen to their stories. No limitations, no restrictions, no holds barred. In the Spotlight will also spotlight interesting topics, issues, and relevant situations. Don't miss In the Spotlight on Q95 FM radio every Monday night from 8 p.m. In the Spotlight.
One-on-one with interesting personalities, educational and informative topics and issues, intriguing and entertaining. A must listen to In the Spotlight, Monday nights from 8 p.m. on Q95.
.06 is the time in our studios. In the Spotlight radio show with Dr. Hazel Shillingford-Ricketts. And we're speaking eye care. We're talking about Dr. Ricketts' career, her professional life, focusing on the services that she's provided to Dominica. How long, Doc, have you been
From 96
in service? Kadisha, you do the calculations.
23 years.
23 years? About that, 23 years there, but that's a lot of years. That's over 2 decades. And that is a lot of energy and effort and time to give to your people and to your country. Before we went to the break, you were beginning to speak about Vision 2020.
Yes.
So let's kick off.
So, I mean, the World Health Organization, in collaboration with other NGOs like the International Association for the Prevention of Blindness and so Sight Savers, and so they recognize that it was a public concern now, the number of blind persons around the world, and most of them were in developing countries. So they developed this initiative, the Right to Sight, and it was a way of advocacy and raising funds to push to get more persons having eye services to restore their vision. So the Caribbean region, we determined now, if like in certain parts of Africa, trachoma, which is an infection of the eye, is a leading cause of blindness. So their resources went into trachoma, but we don't have trachoma here. So our resources went into increasing our cataract surgery rate, diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, refractive error, which is the need for glasses, and childhood blindness. Now, childhood blindness is not a large number of children blind, but if you have a child who gets blind at age 2 and they live up to age 50 to 60, that is 58 years, you have to support this blind person. Whereas if you have an 80-year-old go blind and they die at 85, then it's only 5 years. So hence the importance of preventing blindness, of minimizing blindness in childhood. So this is what we chose. We were going to focus our energies on. But I had another problem with Dominica. Over the years, I found that I was coming across these people with these peculiar retinal disorders that would get them blind by the time they reach 60, 70 or so. And I've never seen that before. I know when I look through the files, I saw Dr. Michaud had investigated some of them for syphilis, some for TB, all kinds of known, I don't know if it was panning out. So I kept keeping a log, but then I made an observation that all of them are from the east. So you take from Fort-Saint-Jean, Gomop, Petite Savane, La Roche, Critical, La Plaine, Petite Soufrière, Grand Fort, Saint-Sauvé, that belt. Now, it became so, I became so attuned to it that when I would look in somebody's eyes and I would see the changes, the first thing I'd ask them, where are you from? And invariably, some of them would have left or have never lived on the east, but their grandparents are from that place. And there was one particular case, this was when I just came back, who hooked up the cat and eye specialist. So she came from Antigua where she lived for me to examine her. And I found this disorder. I didn't know what it was then. So I told her, well, they have a problem in the eye. I cannot manage it, but I can refer you to the Baskin Palmer Eye Institute to Miami. That's all they did with a little to do for them to further investigate you and see what is the problem. The lady turns up several years later, worse, and I recognize it as part of this group of people with this eye problem.
From the east side.
So I asked her, where is that? I never asked her before because I had not sort of gotten a grasp of what I was dealing with. So I said, where are you from? Rivière Zurich. I just smiled. So I had one of the doctors who trained with me, he proceeded after our general ophthalmology training to subspecialize in retina. And I'd go most times, it's only now I do go every year, but most times I'd go back to Canada because they have a symposium in September for part of my continuing medical education. And I met him once and I said, Peter, I have this problem and I don't know where to start. And so he agreed to come down to Dominica in 2001. Now it's peculiar because the day he left Dominica was 9/11. He came with his nurse, Lynette Harper from Ottawa, and when I heard about the planes, I know he was heading through states to Toronto. I was like, oh my God, where is Pitts? Where is Pitts? Where is Pitts? And he got held up in Jamaica for a whole week before he could proceed to Toronto. So that they cemented in my head. So he said, yes, Hazel, you really have a problem. I cannot tell you what it is, but it warrants for us to research into it. So he put together a team from Toronto, and they came back in 2005, and I collected the patient. In the meantime, I kept a log of all the patients, and then we examined them and their families and so, and a scientific paper was written describing the disease and so, and then blood was drawn to do. We recognized more likely something genetic, so blood was drawn to test for genes to see if it is part of a known eye disease.
Right.
All the genetic tests we did for known retinal eye problem came back negative. So we recognized that must be a new genetic problem. But in the meantime, I talk a lot. So in our Ophthalmology Society of the West Indies, I kept mentioning about this thing. And then this doctor from Martinique said, but wait, that sounds like something we see in Martinique. But they seen it on the west coast of Martinique. So remember these days, over had no roads, and it was quicker for them to jump on a puppy and go across to Martinique. And so a lot of them Larons and so are French names.
Right.
So they found these people in Martinique on that side of the coast, and they are traced to people from the south of France. Well, by then I had to bring in Lennox Honeychurch to give me some historical aspect of these people's lives and so. So unfortunately we have not been able to detect. We went as far as...
Even today, no?
Well, we went as far as getting a control group, which are persons from the Marigot Western, because these were Africans that came through on the English plantations, so they were different from those French related people there, as a control to see if we can detect the difference. But money to look for new genes looking like a needle.
Yes.
So that's where we're stuck now.
So what exactly is the condition, Doc?
So it is a retinal disease where you start getting these little deposits called drusen, and then you get leakage of water under the retina and hemorrhages under the retina, and then it would scar the retina and they would lose the retinal function on their side. And so, but over the years I have found that if the disease is still in the periphery, meaning it has not affected the part of the retina for reading, if I put a barrier of laser between the affected and the non-affected retina, it will prevent it from progressing
further.
To the, yes.
Okay.
But it's just that a lot of people come when they have already lost their sight.
Okay.
And I cannot
do
put the laser for them, and so. But so this is very. I'm still collecting patients as I talk. And a matter of fact, one of the investigators, while he in Toronto in his office, black man came into his office, and when he checked, he said, "But wait, your eye look like something I saw in Dominica." And so the man was from Davies. So the doctor in Toronto, he went for his eyes check, and the doctor, being one of the researchers, mentioned to him that he had seen that problem before, and the man reported that he was from Davis. So it is really, I mean, I see people from Girondin, whatever it is, and they all go back to the east.
Some kind of.
So we have named it the Laplaine retinal degeneration.
Okay.
Some of the Laplaine people are not too happy we are associated with it, but the Laplaine district is the one in very most.
Because one community is singled out. I don't blame them, but it is what it is. But what's the plan, though, Doc? As I know, in terms of trying to find some funding or something.
Well, I know the French people had a project, a European funded project, for mapping out the genetic makeup of their people in the French territories. And at the time, my late husband was still alive then. They would have gotten additional funding if they extended their research to a neighboring country like Dominica or St. Lucia. So, but because I started with the Canadians, I didn't want to, just move away. So I think I reached the point now where I'm going to ask them. It's possible for me to ask the French to come in to help us, because I know they've been investigating their group of patients.
So all is not lost.
No,
all is not lost. You still intend on pursuing this further.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then we have a number of patients with glaucoma. There is not an easy way to screen for glaucoma. So what I did for the glaucoma patients, I did what is called opportunistic screening, meaning irrespective of what complaint you come for, conjunctivitis, a trauma, whatever it is, red eyes, itchy eyes, I screen for glaucoma. So, and if they show they have any of the features of glaucoma, then I do additional tests. So this is how we detect. And then we know that glaucoma tends to run in families. So we inform the people, well, you have glaucoma, tell your family you have it, and that means they're at risk. So they themselves can check themselves. It usually starts about the age of 35 in black people. Because we know if you go blind from glaucoma, it is irreversible. So this is how we detect. But I had a colleague, Dr. Tony Riolini from the University of West Virginia, and he had done a study in St. Lucia using a particular laser to treat the glaucoma, to lower the eye pressure, and it worked quite well. But he didn't know it was just a fluke. So he asked if he could repeat the study in Dominica, which is a different population, black population from St. Lucia. And so he came in and he did the study, and our results were very good. But it's a thing, after a number of years, we got to either redo it or put them on eye drops. But his publications were so reported such a success that he's been asked not to come and repeat those studies in South Africa, and so we've lost 15 minutes. So, but we'll see what we can do. If we get the machine, if we get the laser machine, we can do it, yes.
Okay.
Now, so one of the things that came out from the Cuban thing, the people bashing me, was that I wanted everything for myself.
You greedy.
But little did they know that there were a number of things I had in the pipeline. So for example, in the year 2000, I remember Mr. Barry Strafford had visited Dominica, and he, at that time, Mr. Dr. John Toussey, the vet, was the Minister of Health. So that's to show you how far
that was a long time.
And he came to visit the eye clinic, and then I had one of my patients for the, I can't remember his name now. Anyway, he said, "Doctor, you're not telling them we have got a toilet?" Because the clinic was downstairs in the basement next to the audience quarters, and really and truly, these older persons, they want to use the bathroom, they had to find the steps and go upstairs by casualty side. And it was really, some of them, by the time they reach here, they have an accident, and so.
I think some of us Dominicans really afraid nobody.
But then that initiated the conversation of relocating the eye clinic, and and then building a new eye clinic. So Mr. Strafford agreed to fund the construction of a new eye clinic, and so we started on. So Mr. Pierre Charles, the late Prime Minister, he and Mr. John Fabian, the PS of Health, they were acquainted with the process of those things with Mr. Strafford, because he had built already 4 health centers in Dominica.
Okay.
So they knew one of the criteria was to transfer the land where he was going to do the construction into the name of the foundation. So they proceeded with that, and we started drawing plans. I took the plans to Canada, to the biotech department, to get the approval that we were doing the right thing. And this thing went for tendering several times, and for one reason or the other, it never got out the ground. So anyway, with the building of the Dominica Chinese Friendship Hospital, after the phase 1, this is what they're doing. So the eye clinic is almost complete, and I am pleased to say that they have kept to the plan that I had originally designed for the eye clinic.
Awesome.
So we're going to have a much more improved location for delivering eye care. And we now have 3 ophthalmologists, because you have Dr. Lee, the Chinese ophthalmologist, you have Dr. Lawrence, who just came back from training in Canada, and myself. So we'll really be able to take off with providing eye care without those long waiting times. And so whereas now we have only 1 examination room for a doctor, we have 4 in that clinic.
1 for each of you, yes. And more, plus 1.
And then even if you do the clinic by yourself, you can put patients to sit in the rooms, and you just go from one room to the other to see the patients to make it faster. So,
okay.
So that was the infrastructure. But Ottawa, and then because we were planning from 2000, one of the need for the region we discovered was ophthalmic technicians. Because remember I told you that they had in Trinidad and what.
Yes, on the last program. Yes, indeed.
So we said we were going to do a training program.
Give them what coming for them.
We were going to do a training program here for technicians, and Ottawa was going to come down and do the training and that would be part of the eye clinic thing. And so because Ottawa was still working with me on session planning and increasing human resources and that sort of thing.
And before you proceed, I noticed that you mentioned Ottawa a lot. You seem to have had some kind of relationship with Canada.
Yeah, because that's where I was trained.
That's where you were trained.
Yes, and they maintained.
So you used your connections there.
Yes. And I was the first black to be taken into that program.
Okay.
And so, and they really wanted to, maintain support and so. So they always spoke to me about succession planning.
Okay.
I'm not going to live forever. You got to start identifying a doctor to train. So I identified the first doctor. She went to train. After the first year, she
changed. That's not for her?
Yes.
Okay.
She changed to another.
Were you disappointed?
Yes, because we raised money and a lot of things went to getting her going up there and so. But that's right.
Yeah.
So then Dr. Lawrence was trained at UWI and she was in Barbados working in the eye department and she was looking for a place to train. And the chairman of the program in Toronto was actually my chief when I was training in Ottawa. So I spoke to him, she applied and she got it.
Good.
And so she's the one that's completed her training.
So she's back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had 2 ophthalmologists. Then we had 2 ophthalmic technicians. We had Ms. Nanda and
Winston.
Morancy.
Okay.
And so then I had 2 biomedical technicians who had short stint training, one in Italy and one in India, a rehabilitation officer for the blind. And this was done very early when I came back in '97, because I realized we had a number of blind persons and nobody was there to teach them, how to use the white cane and change their homes around and work with them to improve their independent living. And so I got Miss Lisa Warty to go to Antigua to train as a rehabilitation officer for the blind. Now when I get people trained, I always make sure that there is a way that they can get employed when they come back. So she was one that was not in the service before, but I found out that there was a budgetary post called Social Welfare Officer for the Blind. So I just assumed, happy, they will,
fit her in.
Well, that never happened. So she never got employed in the government service. So her services have been accessed privately. Also. Then we had the screener and Ms. Winston trained in St. Lucia, and both Nanda and Winston went on to do the international certification for screener graders at the standard of the screener graders in England, and they both traveled to England, and so they're now international certified. Then I had the optometrist, Mrs. Morgan, go to India to train for low vision. So if you have impaired vision, we can still optimize it with vision aids like magnified glass, telescope, closed circuit television. There are a number of other aids you can use to get persons to function. And then I trained operating room nurses how to operate and how to assist at surgery. So St. Lucia sent one of theirs for me to train, and Guyana sent one.
You did the training yourself?
Yes, we with the nurses in the theater, or operating room nurses. One from Guyana, 2 from Jamaica, and we had about 3 or 4 from Dominica and so. And we get their certificate and everything. But guess what? When Morancy was with me, although she was trained as an ophthalmic technician, she used to assist me at surgery. And then when she migrated to the States, her first job was in the operating theater. Now she's in charge of the eye theater in Pennsylvania where she works. Okay? She's in charge of the eye theater.
Imagine that.
Okay? The one from St. Lucia became head of the operating theater in St. Lucia. Okay?
The people you trained?
Yes. The one from Guyana trained others in Guyana to do the thing. She's since migrated somewhere else and so. So our people, when I train these people, they and then I had encouraged one of our operating room nurses to. She went to Canada to do her nursing training as an operating room nurse, and I got an attachment for her in Ottawa to learn the microsurgical techniques for assisting in eye surgery. Then Orbis is a flying eye hospital, and I got one of our nurses to go there. Just before I retired, we were supposed to send some more personnel there, but that didn't materialize. And I've had residents from Canada come in to do a monthly elective with me. And there was one case where this white man came in for some eye emergency, and he saw this white guy standing next to me, and he just goes there. So it's nice of you to come down to show the natives how to.
Oh, hell no!
So I looked at him, and then you could see the Canadian guy getting red there. So we had to tell him, no, madam, I can't here to look for Dr. Shillingford. But the guy just assumed he's a white man there, and it must be because he's coming to train us in Dominica. And so, well, our interns, our student nurses, they all rotate to the eye clinic and so. And I had a very, how I call it? I'll consider it a compliment from one of the junior doctors. She was working in St. Lucia to say, Doc, because they know I was strict to them. And they called me about a patient, they had to have certain examination findings down. If they don't do it, I send them back. I ask them to go back and call me again. And so she said, Doctor, I'm in St. Lucia there. And when the other junior doctors come across an emergency, they just write eye emergency and send to the eye doctor. But I do what you teach me to do. I do my visuality, I examine, and so she said, when I call the eye doctor, she wants to know if I'm a specialist in eyes, because the way I was presenting my case, I say, you see, when I kept harassing you all for that, there's been a pain for you all, and so now you see the difference, okay? And so
you develop some good professionals.
Mm-hmm. And then I, always used to continue medical education for the medical person. We have interesting cases we present and so. And did a lot of public awareness programs of glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy.
Oh yes, I've heard you on the radio countless times.
Testing vision for driving and so. A lot of advocacy. I remember one Christmas I had 5 patients, most of them children, within a few hours, who were admitted to the ward for pellet gun injuries to their eyes. Child, and I was cooking my Christmas dinner, and every minute hospital calling me about a pellet gun injury. Well, I pick up the phone and I call the nurse and I tell those grandmothers, go and confiscate all the pellet guns your children have, because I remember keep myself and pick a bone with me because I was being too rash. Anyway, the long and short of it, I have not seen that type of injury again.
Thank God.
So it worked.
Thank God.
Okay. One of the other things, so I worked with the police, was to stop serving drinks in bottles at public events.
So that was you.
Because invariably, and it was so unfortunate, these people would get bottle injuries into their eye and they don't even know who flinged the bottle at them. I remember a young man came from England for the first time to Dominica to meet his relatives there. And within one day, he was going to Creole in the park in the gardens. Mm-hmm. And bam, a bottle slammed him in his eye. I had to patch the eye quick and put him back on the next plane back to England and so. You may have seen about 2 paros or Romoso with one eye. This is what happened to them, and so I had to remove the eye because it was so...
Remove the eye?
Yes, severely damaged and so. What I'm still trying to work on is the alkali. This business about women using it as a weapon for when they have problems with man and woman, and so, and it causes serious blindness in the eye. And my love,
is this common though?
Yes, it's common enough. And I just call the police for them, and when the police come in, they don't know what happened to them because
Dr. Ricky said I just call the police for them.
Yes, because I just find it is very malicious to throw alkali in the eye of somebody else.
And it's normally planned. They come.
Yes, they plan prepared.
Because you have to go and find it.
Exactly, and I don't see what is the use of alkali anyway. Whatever you can do with alkali, you must can get something else to do it with, and so I really wish that would be banned. And 2, testing vision for drivers. I still have those 2 unsuccessful missions there.
In terms of the alkali or whatever it is they call it, what is the message?
The message is just don't use it to throw in other people's eyes, because it can cause permanent blindness. You know, it scars the cornea. You know, depending on how serious the concentration is, and then if the person do not wash their eye at the same time, or they do not come to the hospital promptly enough for us to irrigate the eye, and sometimes I have to keep them in the hospital a month. What? Yes, to encourage the cells to grow, and then when it grows with scarring and blood vessels into the cornea, and so, and in 97, I did the first organ transplant ever in Dominica, and it was for 2 patients. Now, the donor of the eye was harvested locally, because one of our training as residents was to harvest the eye of people who have agreed to donate their organs. But you know, the other specialties would take the first pick of taking out everything from the eye, and they wait until they send the money to the morgue to call us. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm there in the morgue alone, taking out dead people's eyes.
No way.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus. No. No, thank you. No, thank you.
And if you could come, you see, you looking behind.
Of course. But Doc, let me ask you, I really want to talk about this organ transplant thing, but just before we leave off the alkali part, do you know if anybody has ever, been jailed or, sent to prison for that?
I think so, because they usually have been to a few court cases with that, and so I think maybe one, but it's not a very frequent occurrence. Because I say most times, because the lovers quarrel,
they kill it,
pursue it, and so. But yes, because actually the one I did the corneal graft for, I think the woman ended up in jail. I think so.
Okay.
But she was a young woman in her 20s, blind in both eyes from alkali. Now I had inherited her when I came. She was already blind. And every time I saw this girl, she said, "Doctor, I have 2 little boys and I can give anything that I could see my children." So I had this gentleman who came in with a corneal infection. And that infection, no matter what I did, it was just like a runaway train on its own path. And it ate up his cornea. But I know the back of his eye was still healthy. So I believe I had a corneal graft to exchange his cornea with this fresh cornea that I could restore his vision. And I don't know who I mentioned it to, and they said, "Oh, but they have this patient there. He is known, he has kidney failure, and he knows that if he gets a kidney transplant, he would improve. But unfortunately, he passed before he got the transplant. But the family was already sensitized about transplant. So when he passed, I approached the family to get his eyes, and they consented that I could take both his eyes. So now I have 2 eyes. So I transplanted the cornea in the eye of the patient with the infection, and then I called the alkali burn patient to have the cornea.
So you saved 2 people. You assisted 2 people.
Well, I assisted 2 people. So I was just looking to help these people. You know, I just came back from university 96, 97. You're fresh, you're energetic, and so I wasn't thinking of anything about publicity. But at that time, the hospital was going through a rough patch in public media. So
the public image was not good.
Yes, so Miss Paul was the hospital services coordinator. So when she found that out, she said, "Oh my God, Doc, that is good news. Let us put it on."
I agree.
So before you knew it, media was all over the place and whatever it is.
So they worked now? It actually worked?
It worked for a few months. Because these 2 cases, if you're an ophthalmologist, you would know that these 2 cases are 2 worst cases to the corneal grafting.
Okay.
Because in the case of the alkali damaged eye, not only the cornea is scarred, but the whole surface with the lacrimal glands and all the other tissues that are needed to support a healthy environment for the cornea to survive was also damaged. But she had a few months where she could see the children, and then gradually the cornea got opacified again. The other man, same thing. And I remember the professor who taught me to do corneal transplant. When I went back to Ottawa, I was telling him about it, and he said, Hazel, you like to make life difficult for yourself. These are the two worst cases.
In other words, you should never have done it in the first place.
You could do it, but as your first case, you know, this is not the cases you'd want to do. But I was just so wanted to hear this. So since then, I've done one other for a patient with keratoconus. Now, keratoconus is a cornea problem where the cornea is shaped like a cone instead of like a ball, so they cannot focus well. But this time I got the cornea from Ottawa because a colleague of mine was coming up.
Okay.
I did it, it survived, but this young man migrated, so I don't know what is the outcome.
Okay.
The time he was in public,
it worked.
Yes.
Okay.
So
have you had opportunities to do it again and opted not to?
I can. The problem is that now there is a eye bank in Miami you can use, but you have to transport this thing in midday on ice. Now, because we do not have an international airport for a one-stop thing, you have to go from Puerto Rico, you have to get somebody in Puerto Rico to pick it up, bring it to the other plane, in the plane decided not to. It has a lot of issues to get from one to the other. So I just figured I have enough other work to do. So I refer them to Barbados. There's an anterior segment specialist there, so anybody who requires it. And now transplantation has evolved to a much more technical level. Now instead of transplanting the whole cornea, you may transplant only the posterior third or the anterior 2/3 or whatever it is. So it has evolved into a technique that is far beyond my capabilities.
Okay.
So I just refer them overseas now.
Doc, what is one of the, we'll come back to that a bit, what is one of the worst cases that you have come across in terms of your experience and having to perform surgery?
Actually, I have a list of the things there.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. So the most challenging case I had was a young boy, about 11, New Year's night. New Year's Day, he was doing fireworks and it exploded in his face. And he was the son of the Taiwanese ambassador.
Wow.
And so they called me about midnight to come in. Both eyes were affected, his eyelids were shredded, his whole face was tattooed with the explosive.
Yes.
And the face was burnt. And it took me 6 hours non-stop surgery. The nurses that assisted me changed.
Shift.
The anesthetist changed shift. And I had, when I got up, I couldn't feel my legs. I mean, I saved one eye, he ended up seeing 20/20 that eye. The other eye, I knew you'd lose it, but I patched it up so that the father can see well. You know, he eventually went to Miami and they removed the eye. And then I had to repair the eyelids, you know, in different layers and so. So that was my most challenging case. That's when this is holiday times, I cannot drink.
Yes. You get nervous, huh?
The most satisfying is restoring sight to people that are blind, especially the cataract patients. And so if they are blind in both eyes and you do one eye and you remove the patches and say, "Oh, doctor, you're a big lady man, I didn't realize you're fat like that." You know,
of all things.
And so you get this. The most gratifying is I've had a number of children who had cancer in one eye, retinoblastoma.
So cancer even is in the eye too?
Yes, babies. And so I've removed the eye and they have all survived. All of them, big one.
So with the cancer you have to literally remove the eyeball.
And depending on how far it has spread. But so far, those are detected here, they did not extend outside of the eyeball. So they did not need any adjunctive therapy like chemotherapy or radiotherapy, and they all survived. The first one was in 97, so he's about 27, 28. As a matter of fact, he just went away to replace his prosthesis, the false eye, and so. But
people actually see with those ones?
No.
Oh, it's just there for the. Okay.
But on that note, I had one child who the parents refused to have the eye removed. no matter, I went as far as calling
A cancerous eye?
Yes, eye with cancer. They just refused, you know, the raster tendency, and so they went overseas. When I saw they were taking the child to see of conventional therapies, it was a bush doctor, and anyway, within 9 months that child passed, and I know that child could have survived. So that was my most heart-wrenching
situation
I had to deal with in my profession. And so over the years, my professional life has brought financial rewards to my family, but there were sacrifices. My children, I could not be provided with the amount of mommy time they needed growing up, and so right now I'm trying to make up by spending quality time with my granddaughter. So I pay attention to every little thing she's doing and laughing and putting out tongue and what things I didn't get to do with my children because I was always on the road, and so I hope to work as long as I can, as long as health permit me to. Having waited so long to see the eye clinic built, I'm looking forward to have it properly finished and functional, and will really help to enhance eye services in Dominica and so. But you know, there is, it's the first time I'm saying this publicly, Dame Virginia Charles, after she retired from politics, I did surgery for her, and I remember in one of our conversations she said, you know, Dr. Shillingford, people tend, you know, in her husky voice, people tend to say that I didn't do anything for Dominica, but having trained a Dominican as an eye surgeon to come back to provide services for our people is gratifying to me. This is one of the best gifts I could have given to my people, and I really cherish that in my heart, and I just really regard it as a sacred testimony that she provided to me, and so, and irrespective of all the other shenanigans that occurred, you know, I have those, you know, testimonies, and that keep me going, and I will always feel honored to have, you know, chosen my profession in ophthalmology to serve Dominicans, and I really enjoy my simple.
We spoke a lot about your work in terms of the public sector, but you also run a private practice.
Yes.
And a very busy private practice, yes. If I might say so myself. So tell us about that aspect of your career, of your business, of your life.
Well, I remember when I came back, my husband came once and said, you know, Dr. McIntyre said you should sell glasses.
Sell glasses?
Yes, you know, provide optical services. And this is one of the worst things you can tell an ophthalmologist, because they consider themselves prized eye surgeons. Why would you want to reduce my services to selling glasses? But over time, the need was there, and I, you know, initially was in partnership with another professional from outside of Dominica, and then eventually brought it over, and so, and you know, it is one of the services that are needed, because the leading cause of impaired vision in the world is because people need glasses, plain and simple, and so there is a great demand for it. It's just that in Dominica, a lot of times people cannot afford to buy it, and so they go without it, and so. Seeing patients, I'm in the hospital in the mornings.
I was about to ask you, how do you balance the both?
I usually 5 days a week in the hospital in the mornings, you know, and so I get to my office by 3:30 and go up till about 8, sometimes up to midnight.
I've been with you until some late hour.
And then when patients come in, I tell them, well, you know, I have a colleague in Jamaica that goes up to 2-3 o'clock in the morning, so we haven't reached the bottom of the pan yet.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, but depends. Because as I said, you know, when a patient sits on your chair, you never know what you're going to find. And when somebody has you find that they have a serious eye problem, you have to explain to them, you have to give them a whole list of investigations to do, referrals to other doctors, and so that might take you an hour and just throw you out of sync. And so my patients always complain about the weight and whatever it is, and so. But it depends on what I have to do for a patient. We try to. People say, oh, I had an appointment for 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock I am still there. And then I would explain to them, well, if there's a child there, I have to see the child. If the child stays too long, they get cranky and I cannot get anything from them when they come into exam. If you have a person sitting on a wheelchair, if you have a little frail 80-year-old, you know, you've got to give them priority. You have to give them priority. So I really appreciate the understanding of my patients. But you know, there's one thing I really like, Carolina.
Tell me, Doc.
Usually it's busy, somebody bus leaving Rose at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
I think we need to do better than that. Because this is one of my stress. Patient, oh, Doc, my bus leaving at 1 o'clock. My bus leaving. Why would a bus have to leave at 1 o'clock? You know, we cannot all do the businesses within 8 and 1 o'clock, you know. So that is one of the
things you would like to see change.
Because we always have to be hustling. Patient come to you, I go to Talibishi, Doctor, my bus leaving, my bus, so you have to jump them the line, and then those others behind complaining and grumbling and whatever it is. So I really like to see our bus services improve, so patients can access services beyond 1 o'clock.
Yes, agreed.
In Dominica. So this is one of the things.
So let me ask you, Doc. So you said one of the things that you would like to change is to spend more time with your children and now your granddaughter. But you're going back into the system. You still have your private practice. What are you going to do differently? And I'm asking you this open and publicly. What are you going to do differently to fix this?
Well, remember I said we have 3 of us now.
Yes.
You know. So we had stopped the district clinic. I was discontinued for a while. I think between my husband illness and the Hurricane Maria and all that, and then I lost my dedicated worker, Mr. Michael Joseph. He was the driver taking me to the country ever since I started, and he passed in 2016. And he was not only a driver, he was a quasi technician, because he'd set up the machine. The lights cannot come on, you get a screwdriver out and sort it out and so. And this whole change, everything changing on me at that time. But we're going to resume the services hopefully. And so I have more help now.
Okay.
So I should be able to not stay so late again.
And you do Saturdays as well, right?
Yes, because that is the only mornings in the week I can get the country people.
Okay.
Because other days I'm in the office in the afternoon, and those that come in from far can only come
on a Saturday.
On a Saturday morning.
So you will continue that?
Yeah. Well, I'll see. Yes. Yes, I'll see.
And you almost have to. You almost don't have a choice if you want to serve those from the odd districts.
And now the clinic has its own operating theatre, the new eye clinic. So we do not have to wait on the 1 day a week in the other theatre to operate. Or anyway, our limiting factor is staff.
Okay.
So it looks like I have to go.
You have to send some more training again.
Some more training for operating room this season. Yes. So, but hopefully Now, at these days, they don't even depend on nurses to be assisting at surgery. You have operating room technicians, which they are trained to do just that and nothing else.
Okay.
So we may have to upgrade or include that category of staff to allow our nurses to focus on nursing duties, you know, and so.
Does that fall under some of the probably new recommendations that you're going to make as you?
Well, I think that this is something that has already been considered in the other operating theaters, and so hopefully we are going to be now governed by a board, and we will be able to bring those recommendations forward to them and get their support in improving, you know, the services along the lines and so.
When do you return?
Returning.
Or have you started already?
Well, I've started in a sort of a way because the eye clinic now is limited because we have only one examination room and there are 3 of us. Then you have Imri Ward is now located in the eye clinic, so you cannot have the same kind of, so it's more emergency surgical things being done now there. So hopefully when they move, and then we go into the Christmas holidays where we usually shut down the clinic. But what I've been doing in the meantime is researching on the equipment that needs to be bought to equip the eye clinic. So I'm working, but behind the scenes doing. As a matter of fact, I've already informed the staff that we should. I'll be scheduling a meeting soon for us to make our plans for the new year. And so I cannot more doing administrative work.
Okay, but do you have a timeline that you're working with in terms of the eye clinic itself?
Well, they're working very hard to finish it, they're painting them, so
Okay.
I've had a walkthrough with one of the architects, and I was very pleased with what I saw, and so for a change I couldn't complain, so it was done. So it's just a matter of doing some of the finishing touches specifically for the functioning of the eye staff, and so we'll see how it goes.
I have a question there from one of our viewers. How can someone from a neighboring island make an appointment to see you?
Okay, so they can call my office, you know, at 767 275 1665. That's the cell number.
That's the ones they text me from.
Yes. Or 767 449 8565.
449 8565. Okay, if you miss this, I'll repeat it, but when we get off the live, you can always go back and get it. But it's 275 1665. Of course, you've said area code 767 and 449 8565.
But you know, as you're talking about this there, a number of my clientele come from overseas, so especially Dominicans living in the Virgin Islands or other islands.
Okay.
Like if they come in for holidays, they're scheduled to have their pterygium done or whatever it is. So we do get patients from neighboring islands, especially Dominicans coming in for others.
Another question that was posted is, have you received a national award?
No.
What?
That's not me to determine. No, that is...
Are you aware if anybody has recommended you?
No.
You're not aware. That's interesting, Dr. Hazel Shillingford-Ricketts.
Well, my husband makes so much more when he passed and he gets an award, so...
Wow. That's incredible. We need to fix this. We definitely need to fix this. Dr. Shillingford, the 2 hours has come and gone already.
Yes.
And I'm happy that we got the opportunity to share what you shared this evening. And if anybody missed it, I hope that they can go back. I stopped posting the podcast itself, but you can always go back and view the Facebook Live. If you feel you still need the podcast, I could always, post the podcast as well. But I think it was really nice just talking about all of this and sharing this information. The first part was just awesomeness. Well, a bit of you know, as we said earlier on, the bit of sadness, but you also gave us quite a few jokes on your mom in particular. The one was when she took, I can never forget this one, she took the cutlass and she dragged it on the road to go after the young man who was teasing you. Or what was it he wanted to do?
Just to talk to me.
He wanted to talk to you and your mother, and you go and complain to your mother. You not caused that, Dr. Ricketts.
And you know, it's funny, Lucy just saw the first part, and she posted a very nice message. You know,
Really?
she said a lot of the things that she heard in the first part. The first time she was hearing all those things, and it put certain things into perspective for her. So I'm happy that, you know, that happened.
Okay. Dr. Ricketts, we have to wrap up. I'm going to give you the opportunity to share some final comments with us, with my audience, both on radio, both on social media as well. Before Dr. Ricketts gives her final comments, let me remind you again to support our GoFundMe. We're looking to close it off pretty soon, so please go there and support the GoFundMe for the In the Spotlight radio show. Whatever you give is greatly appreciated. I know, I think I might have seen something that there might be a small issue, but I'm sure that Sabina, if she has not resolved it as yet, will have it resolved in no time. All right, so thank you in advance for your support and your contribution. Dr. Ricketts, your final words.
Well, first of all, thank you very much
for pleasure, I can tell you.
Having me here this evening, and I was happy to share my experience, because most people do not know the breadth of what you do as an ophthalmologist. And I want to tell our listening public that I know that there are a number of things that we want, or we still want in Dominica, but our eye care, when I listen to the World Report on Vision, a lot of what they are recommending are things that we already doing in Dominica. Yes, there is more like our data collecting and that sort of thing. We need to start getting serious about it. So, but we expect great things. I'm back at the hospital, and I have 2 other members of staff, ophthalmologists. So we expect to see a great improvement in the services offered to the public, and do not hesitate to access eye care, because blindness is not a good, you know, thing to have. So I will be there to look after you. I promise I will be there even when I have my walking stick. Once I can sit down on the chair and move my hands and I can see. You know, we have doctors up to 85 in Ottawa still having practice. They're limited, but still having practice. So I should be around for a while. And so, I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy seeing my patients. So you will be taken care of.
God bless you, Dr. Ricketts, and on behalf of all of us, your patients, those who may, probably not your patients as yet, but who will be your patients, we just want to say thank you for all that you've done for Dominica and all that you will continue to do. I'm pleased to hear that you're back at the hospital to serve the people of Dominica, to serve your patients, for some level of continuity for your patients. And I am sure that many persons are happy to hear that, and we look forward to you continuing to do what you do for us, and we wish you well, and we hope that and pray that your hands will always be sturdy, that you can take care of us and you can do what you need to do, that you took years studying to do, and what you've done for the people of Dominica. So thank you on behalf of all of us. It was indeed my pleasure to have Dr. Ricketts. She's only one of 2 guests that I've actually given a part to. And I think it was well worth it and well deserving to have her come back and share with us. God willing, we will be back here next week, Monday, for another In the Spotlight radio show. Thank you to everyone who tuned in via Q95 FM radio, and those who tuned in or viewed via our Facebook Live. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, good night and God bless.